So, hello everyone. I welcome to Sambhav Law, and today we have All India Rank 9 Vaibhav with us, who has scored so well in the CLAT PG exam. So, firstly, Vaibhav, I welcome to the channel.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, accordingly, Vaibhav, firstly, can you introduce yourself to the audience for us?
Yes, my name is Vaibhav Vidhyansh, and I have completed my BA LLB from MNLU Nagpur. Thereafter, I prepared for CLAT PG examinations, and I have secured All India Rank 9. I had also taken test series of Sambhav Law and had done rigorous self-study along with multiple revisions of the test series, and I'm sure that taking the test series as well as revisions in the last moment were quite conducive in the results that I have got.
So, accordingly, Vaibhav, let me start with the first question. So, Vaibhav, like when you started your preparation, what was your motivation? Like, why did you want to apply for CLAT PG? And when you started your preparation, when was it? Like 6 months ago, 5 months ago? How did you start?
I just wanted to have a secure plan B. I just wanted to get into a good NLU so that I could have a plan B in case I am not able to, crack judicial service examinations. So that was my motivation. It was basically for plan B, but some people may also intend to take LLM. Intend to take assistant professorship as their goal, but I had taken it as a plan B. I had started preparation almost 1 year ago. So it was not with the intention that I will write CLAT PG or if I'm studying for the sole purpose of appearing at CLAT PG. My objective was that I should be conversant with every subject that is taught. So from May to December, I had done a rigorous study of the barracks. So it was after this phase that I took test series and I started reading judgments. What I had seen is that if we completely neglect the barracks and go directly towards the judgments, then I thought that would not be a good idea for me. So yes, so in way back in May itself, I had started reading the barracks.
So it was like in May 2021, basically.
Yes, May 2021.
Okay. So like when you came for the last phase, last 6 months, if I say, so what was the change in your strategy when the last months came, 6 months?
Yes, sir. So after perhaps from January onwards, because my basics were quite clear and I was conversant with every section, and I had also read a reference book. You may take any reference book, for example. So now it was time for me to take test series. So I had my modus operandi was to take a mock and attempt it and see where I was making mistakes. So because I had done barrack so well that there were very few areas in which I used to score too low. So what I did was I used to, after every mock, I used to take down the questions or the areas in which I was lagging behind, and then I used to go back and read the judgments on those topics, even on the topics which I knew clearly or I had a fair bit of idea. Say for example, legislative relations. So I've done it properly from VN Shukla and from the Bear Act, but there were again new judgments that were coming forth. So the test series also helped me in to be updated with the new issues that are emerging, or the new principles that have been discussed again. So the series were instrumental in, shaping my preparation in the second half of my preparation.
I see. So like if I come to the last 1 month, then like as the month of May came up, so did you change anything or was it pre-planned? Like you knew already that what has to be done in the month of May, or did you change something in your preparation?
Okay, so when it was May, I had noticed one thing, that I had already read enough. You never have to score 100%. I had seen the cutoffs of previous years, so I just wanted to be sure that I score somewhere around 60 to 70% of marks. So my strategy was to revise and re-revise the things which I already know. So I should not, lose marks in the subjects which are known to me. So although I kept abreast of the, new judgments. Say for example, there was a new judgment about payment of gratuity act. So these judgments I used to come across in test series. So I used to update them, but I did not read anything new in month of May, and I only revised my concepts. I had already actually attempted every test before May itself.
Hmm.
I mean, my mocks were finished before May, the ones that I had subscribed. So I used to go through them, and I used to regularly follow Livelo and STC online, their blog. So they helped me, to be updated about any last moment cases.
Okay. So, Vaibhav, if I come to the paper itself, when you saw the paper, what was your first reaction after seeing the paper?
Okay, so I have a I think it's a very bad habit of not seeing the entire question paper at once, because I tend to panic if even if there's one question which I do not know. So I used to go one by one about each and every question. So the set which I had done, I did not know the judgment. My first question in my set was of right to protest. You know, so although I had a fair bit of idea about everything that is involved in that, but I did not know the judgment from which it was taken. So, as time went by, I found it to be moderately difficult. There were questions which I did not know. There were questions in which I had to take calculated risks. So when I came after going through the entire paper, it was also a lengthy one. No doubt. So when I came out, I was not sure how much I was going to get, but what I knew was that there were considerable part of this which which needed in-depth study, or uh, which which required a lot of analysis also, because there were a lot of options which were also drafted in a manner that would confuse students. There were double negative sentences.
Yeah.
So yes, it was moderately difficult paper as per me.
Okay. So, if I come towards the approach, like when you were solving the paper, what was your approach? Was it a time managed approach, like you will go this by this by this, and then you come to the revision, everything else? Did you pre-plan it? And what was your approach towards the questions that were from the major subjects like constitution, if I talk about IPC, and what about the minor subjects like the company act or the JJ act? What was your approach in that?
Okay, sir. So about time management, I'll answer it first. So there are four columns. 30 question each. So I was sure that I have to dedicate half an hour for each and every segment. For first 30 questions, I had to do that in first hour. So this is what I had made up my mind that I will complete these four sets of 30 questions in 2 hours. So I distributed my time into 30 minutes, four slots of 30 minutes each.
Okay.
So the constitutes, and I had attempted all questions serially. As they came by, I attempted. I did not hop around, and my basic, strategy was to attempt maximum number of questions. That does not mean that even though I did not have any idea, I would, go on attempting it. But where I had even a slightest of knowledge, I used to take that risk. So I had attempted a lot of questions. I left just one question.
One
So
question.
perhaps that was, not the best thing to do. So I had attempted 119.
19. Yeah.
But, overall, it was a win-win situation. Yeah. So you see, there was a question of JJ Act. Perhaps everyone had read about this POXO, because there were a lot of judgments, but I had not read JJ Act. But I had a fair bit of idea about JJ Act. So apart from the first question, I got every other question in that passage correct. So it was not as if I had read it or I knew it. But you see, if you have an idea about the criminal jurisprudence as a whole, if you have read the entire CRPC, that is why I'm saying reading their acts is quite important. Even though I've not read JJ Act, anything about JJ Act, but an idea about criminal jurisprudence would somewhere be conducive in helping you, in taking calculated risks. So and there were also questions from law of the seas, that I did not know. But even then, there also I did, there was some elimination method or these techniques I used to adopt. But uh, the most shocking part for me about all the entire question was these two passages in jurisprudence. Now they seem to be, not too difficult when you see it prima facie. But once I had attempted and I came back and I had made two mistakes as well. So jurisprudence was a bit time taking. So apart from jurisprudence, everything, I sailed through easily. So
I
that's
see. Yeah. So if I come to one more aspect of the paper, what was your strategy in that? Like, did you go for the paragraph part first and you read it after you read the question? So you read the question first and then you read the paragraph.
No, no. I always made sure that I had, run my eyes through the paragraph once, so that because you see, I was of the opinion that a lot of questions can be done directly through paragraph. So because I had solved previous year questions, and a lot of questions, you tend to get their answers. I mean, if not many, but you may of course get substantial number of questions which flow directly through paras. So I had once read the para, but then I read the question and I again went to para if I had not got the answer. So and thereafter again, for that particular question I used to search in para if there's anything at all that may help me, and then I used to attempt that.
I see. So accordingly, if I move to the next part of the whole thing, as you might have seen that the pattern of the CLAT PG 2022 paper is different from 2021. So according to you, which one was more difficult, 2021 or 2022?
You see, mm, that will be a tough task to compare both the papers. But given the fact that we have already prepared a lot of things in this paper also, apart from one or two questions, there was not even one para which came out of which was not anticipated somewhere down the line, even in your mocks, or I am sure in all the mocks which were in the market. And people had anticipated these questions. Apart from the JJ at question that came, perhaps each and every question that we had seen in the mocks were somewhere they were in the news at some time. You see, when it comes to frustration of contract, I mean, I would give an example. So I was pretty sure that frustration will be asked, whether it will be asked in the form of the doctrine of at equal fault in pari delicto, or in some other manner, or so I had anticipated a lot of questions. So I think this was a moderately, although it seemed to be moderately difficult paper, when everyone came back and they matched their answers, it turned out to be, somehow it was like same paper. I mean, it was of same difficulty level. But yes, prima facie, it looked as if this is a very hard paper.
Like in the first glance, that's right. So if I go to the
Yes.
next question, Vaibhav, so my question would be that if a aspirant is preparing for 2023, if you start preparing right now, what would be your approach and what would you advise to a future aspirant?
Yes. So now, we have hardly 6 months, if I'm not wrong. I mean, we have around 6 months or less.
Yeah.
So I think the approach should be, instead of going first for reading judgments at once, you should take out 2 months of time and read the entire Bear Act first, because that would help you in building your basics. Once your basics are clear, you have read all the Bear Acts of all the major subjects that are taught, along with any short commentary for law of torts and international and jurisprudence. You may do it from AK Jain or any other booklet that is available in the market. After you're done with all of these, you should start reading judgments. I mean, you need not read all the judgments at once. I mean, and you do not need to cover every judgment that is being published on live law. Okay. The reason why I'm saying that you should delay 2 months this exercise of reading judgments is because once reading judgments will become a cakewalk for you. It'll be far less time consuming. Moreover, you'll be able to generate a degree of curiosity. You see, I'll give you an example. if I were to start preparation from now, I would prepare 10 schedule very properly. Because of the fact that because of the ongoing, political drama in Maharashtra.
Yeah.
So it is highly likely that this matter will go to court. And even if it does not go to court, I'll read each and everything about 10 schedule, how it was brought, when it was brought, what was the amendments which brought it, which paragraph this was struck down, when it was it struck down, what was the bench, So this will help you generate curiosity. Again, so this will happen, you will generate this degree of curiosity only if you are conversant with all the provisions of constitution. Or else what will happen is that if you have read a particular judgment and any question comes up, which is remotely related to that judgment, but that was not discussed in that judgment, then you will not be able to do. So the best course of action will be to take almost 2 months of time, or if you are capable, it can be done in less than 2 months also. You should read entire Bear Act, and then you should go about judgments and test series. So I think that will be very helpful.
Yeah. So if I come to the next question, Vaibhav, if I talk about jurisprudence, this is a very burning issue. That how do we prepare jurisprudence? How do we remember so many jurists, what they said, and what happened? So what is your approach as to how to prepare for jurisprudence?
So for jurisprudence is a very uh, complicated subject, to be frank. So I had not done anything. I had just taken up this book by Pranjate, this one jurisprudence book by Pranjate. So I had made short notes way back in December, January itself. And this is what I had done. I revised it completely. They will hardly have 2-3 theoretical questions that who gave this statement or who belongs to this school. Even if you're not ready with all the questions that may be framed about jurisprudence, even if you have a little bit idea about what was said in which school or what was the view of a particular, philosopher or a particular jurist, so you may take any booklet or any material that is available, but it should not be too bulky, because you'll not be able to retain that much amount of. So even for one school, if you prepare notes in one page, that is enough. You don't need to know everything, because they're not going to ask you everything. And even if they ask you everything, everyone would not be knowing those things. So okay, it's a race. You don't have to nail all the questions. You have to, do correct. You have to do those questions correctly, which everyone else will do, and you would sail through easily. Okay, there's no need to by heart the entire jurisprudence. Okay, so that's what was my approach, and I think it worked for me.
Yeah. So Vaibhav, if I come to my next question, if I talk about the minor subjects like company law, POSCO Act, JJ Act, tax law, what was your preparation strategy for that? Because we cannot completely say now
Okay,
what will come, what will
so
not come. So accordingly, yeah.
so so my strategy was that if a judgment in POXO has come, because a lot of judgments were coming in POXO. So what I had done was I had downloaded the Bear Act and gone through the important provisions of POXO. I mean, to be honest, at that POXO, although I had not by hearted every provision, but it is always safe to to have a fair bit of idea about the entire legislation. Say for example, NDPS Act was also being discussed a lot,
Hmm.
or mm, IT Act, whatever these minor acts may be. So the best thing would be is to skim through the act at once, because it's always better to have a bit of idea, even if you know something, at least you will be able to do one or two questions. Again, I did not spend 3-4 days behind these legislations, but I made sure that I knew the judgment, I knew the provisions that were being discussed. You know, the provisions that were being discussed in the judgments, they become very important, because most of the times our questions come from there itself.
Yeah.
So I had taken, for example, there are other topics like amalgamation of companies, winding up. Now,
Yeah.
company law I had not read at all in college or anywhere else, but I had done these topics. So, for example, I'll say there was no question at all from intellectual property rights, but I had done compulsory licensing very well, because I was thinking that it's likely that a question from this topic may be asked. So, if you have read all the barracks, and if you have solved questions previous year papers, or if you have attempted mocks, any student will be able to develop that, uh, that intent and that uh,
Habit.
that sense of understanding about what is important and what may be asked.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, if I come to the next part, so if I
That's it.
talk about the mock papers, what do you think is the importance of mock papers while one is preparing for this exam?
I think mock papers, the entire revision, I mean, the entire preparation of CLAT may be divided into three stages, as as I have highlighted formally. The first stage has to be your, basics. That is direct. You should be able to do the direct. Second is your judgments. You must be conversant with all the judgments that are being discussed, and you should be able to go back to the provisions that are discussed, and you should relate. The third and perhaps the most important aspect is mocks. You know, the first mock that you'll give will always be your worst mock, because you'll keep on improving from them. Even though you may have performed very well in a mock, but in the next mock, the questions which you have committed mistakes in, you will be able to improve in that. So I had made sure that I would make the best use of mock tests. So it is also important to not take mocks, very seriously in terms of the confidence and that, I mean, the impact that it has upon you. So say for example, you score less in the mock, say you score only 40. So there's no need to be very sad about it. What you should do is you should go about reading the topics in which you have performed poorly, and then you should prepare for it and reattempt those mocks after a few days. That's the very objective of the mock. So we also tend to take it as a challenge, and we think that if we have got 40, that's what we know. No, that's not the objective. I had taken mocks, as a part of my self study. So even if you do not know, you should be happy about giving a mock, because if you're scoring everything in a mock, if you're scoring 120, there was no point of giving that mock at all, because it did not teach you anything, right? So if you're making mistakes, it's good. You'll learn a lot. So you should at least make 10 to 15 marks, and you should revise those marks, because, and if you are into the habit of giving marks, it'll be very easy for you to attempt the paper on the day. Because
Yeah,
if you are not, if you are not into habit of attempting mocks, what will happen is that you will not be able to complete the paper. I have heard from many of my friends that they were not able to complete the paper, or from a lot of people, because papers are reasonably lengthy. So mocks will also give you an idea about how to manage time, how many questions you should attempt on an average basis. Say for example, you have attempted only 70 questions, or then hardly what you'll score. You'll score 50, 55, because you'll always tend to get 20, 25 questions wrong, whatever may be your accuracy. I mean, unless, of course, exceptions do exist, but these mocks will give you an idea about how you should, there should be stages in your preparation for how you would perform on the day when it will matter. So, they are an indispensable part of your preparation, mocks, and you should certainly take at least one or two mock test series.
yeah.
That's it.
So yeah, so if I come to the next part, so Vaibhav, like, how would you say like Sambhav law helped in your preparation? What would you say about that?
Okay. So, although I'd taken a lot of mocks, I mean, in the course of my preparation, I'd started with Sambhav law itself. I mean, I had taken my first mock I was way back in January, February. I mean, the moment it was launched, I had bought it. So I was able to, it was the time from when I had finished reading my barracks, and it was very instrumental in helping me. It pointed out to me the topics which I still needed to go back and do properly. Okay, so every month I used to give 5 mocks of Sambhav law. So for 3 months I gave it, and I had also bought practice papers.
Mhm.
So I diligently attempted all the mocks, and some these mocks also, they were, I used to make a notebook. I had made a notebook of all the important judgments or the important aspects that were being discussed in these mocks. So perhaps a week before examinations, I used to glance through all these questions which I had aired in. So only the wrong questions I used to take down mostly, unless of course मतलब कोई तुक्का लग गया तो that also I used to take. But I used to make notes of the questions which I had committed mistakes in. So they were tremendously helpful, and I think they helped me gain at least 5 to 10 more marks than what I could have gained. I mean, without taking these mocks. So of course they were a very important part of my preparation.
Well, if I come to my last question, what do you think were your pitfalls? Like, what were the shortcomings in your own preparation when you were preparing for this exam?
There are few laws, you see, which I had prepared completely well. That is why, again and again, I'm emphasizing about reading their acts. There are few laws, there are few acts which I have not studied at all. Means I have not done their bare acts, and I had only read their judgments. What happens is that when you ignore the bare acts and read the judgments, your knowledge is, it stands on a very hollow structure. So, for example, I was very poor with international law. I mean, some parts of the international law, including law of the seas. So I had not done them properly. Even few parts of the trademark and copyright law I had not done properly. Only the chosen very specific topics I could do. Again, labor law. These topics I had not done, in a manner would be, satisfied. So I had done very specific topics, and I'm not saying that this was a very bad thing to do, because, but of course, I'll count this as a pitfall, or else I would have got,
90,
perhaps more marks,
85,
but that's
90,
okay.
more,
And
like more than this.
yeah, perhaps there's no end to this, but
Once,
yeah, I was reasonably. Yeah, there's no limit of those desire. Because I got 85 on thinking I could have got 90. The one person who would have got 90, he must be thinking of getting 95. So that's part of life.
Yeah, that's true.
Few of the more subjects which I ignored, but which you should not ignore. I mean, and these subjects are like the I think you should go back and read some text upon, I mean, labor law. I mean, the students who are going to prepare from now onwards, because they are also in the syllabus, and our chances were high that a question from there also could be asked, and I was prepared to leave them. I mean, if at all I had not, if at all a question had come from there, I would have taken this risk of leaving them, because I had not done that properly. So I would suggest everyone not to completely ignore these subjects. It is highly likely that a question may come in future. You never know. So it's always to be safe. Better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah,
Isn't
that
it?
is true. That is true. So accordingly, thank you very much, Vaibhav, for your time, and I hope that the people that are really watching this whole session will learn a lot from your story. Accordingly,
Thank you. I'm also grateful for your all the contribution that you had in in my preparation. I would also add that I had also taken your case laws. I mean, the brief of case laws. They were also quite instrumental in last minute revisions. 2 3 days before the examination, I had gone through all the judgments, and they also help you, in understanding the previous cases that might have come just few years ago. The cases that might have come in 2019. Those cases are not discussed in books, and we tend to miss those, judgments uh, unless we read the entire judgment, or unless we have something consolidated. So those materials that you have provided were also quite helpful in preparing comprehensively. So I am also quite grateful to you and your team for helping, doing your bit and helping me.
thank you very much. Thank you for those kind words.